Hiya then folks, welcome to Boating on a Budget. Today we're cladding the walls and maybe the ceiling. That depends on how we get on with the walls though. We're using this tongue and groove matchboard cladding. About 8mm thick, so it's got enough strength, but then it's not too weighty that it's weighing the boat down. Last thing we want is boat sinking. And it goes on dead easy, this sort of stuff. Basically this first one I've measured down to make sure we're getting it an even gap all the way along, because last thing we want is to get to the top there and find we're closer to this end than this end. And with the boat being out of square, it's all to do with measuring and looking with the eye rather than getting spirit levels and lines and things like that out. So I've measured it up and got that first one clamped into place, put a couple of screws in that end as well, make sure that's right. All we're going to do from there is obviously you build up one on top of the other. Where there's going to be joins, obviously we want to join it on one of these joists, because then we can get each side with a screw in there so that holds it nice and firm. Obviously the fact it's got the tongue and groove does hold each piece together anyway, but whenever joining, always join them on a joist. And as we get a bit higher up, we've got to start cutting angles into the corner of the boards. That shouldn't be too tricky though, we don't think. So I'll crack on, finish getting this board screwed in, because this one's the all important one. Obviously everything comes off this one. Pilot drill with the countersink. Obviously the countersink just means that the head will sit nicely into there and we're not straining the wood by pulling the screw through it, because otherwise that can leave little splits and tears in the wood which don't look very good. And that's got that nice and smooth. One thing we're not sure of is, are we going to paint this or are we going to sort of stain it? If we decide to stain it or varnish it or whatever, I'll swap these screws for the more traditional flathead screws, because they just tend to look a little bit better if you can see the screw as a highlight. Whereas if we paint over it, we'll obviously just put a blob of filler over the top of them, paint the lot, and you'll not even know the screws were there. But I think the finish is something we're going to decide on as we actually get the boat a little bit further along and start looking into colours and things like that. First one in then. Just repeat that about 1,000 times and we're done. So that's giving me the mark for the centre of that joist where we want that to join. So it means I just need to cut about 1 inch or so off there, sort of 25mm, and then it'll line up perfect. You will notice I'm putting these screws in. I'm not putting them at the top, because if you put them at the top, it's a struggle to then get the next board into place, and it can jam up and then it sometimes doesn't quite sit level. So if you put it in towards the bottom, obviously that's leaving a little bit of play at the top, and obviously when you put your next one in and screw that in, that holds that in place. Now I've got one in the middle there, I can then go to each end and make sure it's pulled down nice and snug, because the last thing you want is to start getting little gaps between the boards. So if you start getting gaps, obviously it runs out of level. And I don't know about you, but I can hear that kettle boiling. So I've done 2 minutes work, it must be time for a brew already. Tea break over, got the first couple of rows in, and we're now at the point where we need to cut this corner board. And it'll be dead easy to work this one out, because obviously we can see up to there we want to go straight, so I can just put a little mark on there. That's where we're coming up to, straight. And then if I get the tape measure or the ruler and just measure the gap I've got, which is 16 millimeters, so what's that, a little bit over half an inch, but 16 millimeters. So if I then measure back from that point there, 16 millimeters, draw a line between that mark and the 16 mil, cut that corner off, that'll mean that board will slide in beautifully. That's great, dropped into place then, but where these two join, this board's just trying to creep up just a tiny bit, and it is only probably a millimetre or so, but like I said, if we start letting it run out of line, it causes problems further up. So the best thing to do is just get that, obviously give it a tap down so it's pulling it right into place, then get a screw. I'm trying to do this left-handed so that you can see what I'm doing rather than me being stood in front of the camera, which is not making it easy. Yeah, so that's that pulled down. And that'll just hold it into place now while I get some screws in there, and that's then got this joint nice and flush, rather than say it just riding up that millimetre or two. So there you see, that's got that perfect now. Runs perfectly in line. I've now also got the angle set that I know I need for cutting those, because that obviously that angle follows the same all the way up, so I can dead easily cut that angle into each board before cutting it to the right length that end. Just a case of carrying on. That then is pretty much it. Got all that corner cut nicely. Obviously these are only going up to there because there'll be a board comes down there once we've put the ceiling on. Only thing left to do now is just to neaten this edge up. You will notice a couple of these are a little bit short. It just worked out that the boards finished just a little bit short there, but this is going to be a cupboard here, so you're not going to see any of this actual bit. To be honest, I could have probably not even bothered putting it on right up as far as this, so I'm not too worried about that. All I need to do is put a little pencil line down so we can just cut the scraps off, and then it start on the other side, which will be exactly the same, other than obviously there's a hatch on the other side, so I've got to work around that. All cut and cleaned up. So this is where we'll start building the wall that will be the divide between the bedroom and the bathroom. Now starting to feel a bit like a boat again. Got the bed done the other day, got the walls done today. Next it's going to be tackling the ceiling, and I need to work out for that a bit of the cable runs and things for where the lights are going to be and how the wire's going to come down the edges. I did have to, on the wall, just cut out a little channel out the insulation. That's so that the light switch wiring can come down behind the panelling. That's no problem, got that sorted. Things that I will need to look at are just getting up around the front panelled out. That's going to be a bit fiddly, just getting the little bits in there. But I'm quite happy with what I've got done there. So hopefully you've liked the video, and I'm sure you're already subscribed and ding the little bell so you get notifications when we put more videos on. Because at the minute we are tending to upload 2, 3, 4 videos a week, because obviously we're now cracking on properly with the project. And obviously we do only put videos on when we've got something to show you. We don't just put them on for the sake of it. Likewise, there might be weeks where we've not done anything and we've nothing to show you. But for now, I'm going to start thinking about getting this ceiling sorted. I'll catch you all later, folks. Bye bye.